Hey guys, Shanna Kramer here with Creatively Uncorked, and today we're going to paint the majestic reindeer. We're using acrylic paint today on a canvas, and we're using the basic colors, red, yellow, and blue. Of course, we also have white, and I've got that in a big line across the whole plate because we're going to need a lot of it. So when you get your Creatively Uncorked art kit to go, you'll get a canvas that's pre-sketched. But if you didn't get the art kit to go and you have a membership that you're working with, you don't get a pre-sketched canvas, you get a download of this tracing template. So this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and trace this on there. And how I'm doing this is with a piece of transfer paper. There's a shiny side and a dull side. This should be shiny side down. Okay, it's a really easy way to transfer. And if you're working on a 9x12 canvas, like I am, then it's going to fit perfectly in your printer. This is just a standard piece of printer paper, letter size. You get to decide how careful you want to be about the drawing. Okay, and then we have those big old antlers, but I feel like I'm going to have them all covered up before I get to that part, and we'll probably just have to invent new antlers because the sky will be covered. And that's okay. All of these fun little swishy lines. Fun to paint all day. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Missed a little spot here. Looks pretty good. You betcha. Darn tootin'. All right. So then once you got your image transferred onto your canvas and your cat hair removed, then we can begin with the painting. I'm just going to leave it up here in the corner. Boom, right over there, just so you can kind of keep an eye on what it looks like. We'll switch back and forth when we need to. If we want to go back and take a look at the original, we can do that. So let's get started. I've got my red, yellow, blue paint, acrylic paint out on the plate. And let's see, I think I'm going to stick to these two brushes today. So I have a 1/2 inch flat, and this is going to be my big brush. And then I also have a small round. This will be my small brush. I'm going to think about using an even smaller brush there, but not there yet. Let's just see how it goes. This is a smaller canvas than I usually work on, except for these videos. I only work on the small canvas for videos. So got my cup of water, paper towel, plate for a palette, and I'm going to start with my big brush. This is all color mixing we're doing today. Basic colors only. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to start at the top and kind of work my way down. But one thing I want to keep in mind when I'm doing that is I need to keep an eye on where that sun is. So bright, 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 because that's the brightest color I have. And my plate is set up here so I can have my blues and purples on the left side and my oranges and whites and yellows on the right side. So I'll start with a little bit of yellow. Taking a look at that sun, and it's a lot of white. Okay, so white and a little bit of yellow. Now, most of this is painted in kind of a, what's the word for it? Impressionist style. So I'm just using some short, choppy brush strokes. Now I've got the lightest color in there. Now I really want to start getting in my oranges. Not trying to cover the deer, not very much anyway. Okay, so let's get some orange. To make your orange, you use a lot of yellow, little tiny dot of red, and mix from there. And I'm just adding it to white because I know this whole thing is going to be white. Sometimes when we cover a background, we'll do it with blends. I'm not trying to get that kind of a background today. I want this one to be a little more free, a little more choppy, a little more colorful, because I really like the style. So this orange, so when you get down to another color, see, we're not doing a true blend into it. We kind of are, but just a little dab dab. And that's going to get our color. All right. Orange. And I'm just trying to keep an eye on the original so I know where all the color goes. So this kind of fades up a little higher. We've got some more yellow. So I'm kind of starting here. I started at the sun and I'm just working my way out. I've got some darker oranges, reds down in here that I'll be adding. But right now, whoops, let's lighten that up. Don't need that much yellow. And you see I am painting over the edge of the deer here, and that's because I'd rather have the lines covered than to leave blank canvas. Okay. A little more white, just marking this spot here because this is where my other white and yellow is going to go. It's going to get choppier as we go along. Okay, so now let's start adding some pinks. Taking a tiny little touch of red, mixing it into my white, maybe a tiny touch more. Okay, and I'm going to have some pinks that are down in here, connected to the orange a little bit, and definitely some heavy pinks right below the sun. Just some light brush strokes. I just want this to barely mix together. And when we get to those deer legs, it's definitely going to be something we want to do is to keep the color flowing. So whatever color we put down in front of the deer, we want to keep that flowing through the legs and out the back of the deer, just so it's does look like it's standing in front of the sunset and not somewhere else. Okay, I'm getting into a little purple now. See, I'll take my white from the other side so I'm not getting too much blue in my orange. Okay, how's that look? It's a little bit blue. I think I want to add a little of that over here too. Nope, not yet. Okay, not getting distracted. I'm painting only the sky right now. Okay, so it's more of a red purple. Okay, how's that looking? Not so bad. Okay. And when we're adding these colors, exactly what color you're using isn't as important as how light or dark it is. So take a look where your dark areas are. Like you can see right here at the ground, there's a dark area. At this hill, it's going to be light. This one will be a little darker. And yeah, just go with that. Okay, and I want to brighten this up. It fades to yellow. We don't want to go from purple directly into yellow just because they're opposite colors. A little more yellow. Here, let's give it a rinse. I want to paint this kind of quickly so my colors can still blend. So let's see here. All right, so if I start here, I'm going to go with that purple again. Kind of a nice little bluish purple. A little more white in that. So sometimes I'll mix the colors on the plate. In this case, I'm mixing everything entirely on the plate. The colors should be completely mixed before going to the canvas, which I don't always do it that way. So this is a kind of a fun, different new way to do it. Actually, it's just the way to do it if you want to know what your color is going to be before you add it to your canvas. If you're just hoping for a rough estimation of a color, then you can just mix the colors right on your canvas. Okay, give that a rinse again. I think that might be it for the purples for the sky. Now let's get into those oranges and yellows again. So right in this area, it's kind of a pinky orangey, and right up here is more of a yellow. So let's start with the yellow. There, we've got some bright colors up in the sky. A nice bright yellow. We'll maybe darken it down a little. See, my colors are starting to dry here, so you're going to see the edges a little bit more clearly. We'll go back to this nice orange. There. Brighten it a bit. That orange is coming right up to that blue. We've got just like a little punch of blue sky poking through the clouds. So we'll keep it. Okay, and then over here, what have we got? We've got a little more orange. And this is your sky. You make it any way you want to, of course. There's just a couple of things I'd want to keep in mind if you're just going to go rogue and paint it any way you want to. One of those things is, like I talked about a minute ago, the lights and the darks. Make sure the lights and the darks are where you want them. But in addition to that, we have these, right here's the impact area, so this has to be the brightest. And we have light areas right around this reindeer's head. And then this head is going to be very dark, and the antlers also will be very dark. So that is how we keep our consistent impact area. Okay, a little more orange. All right, I guess I don't want to do a whole lot more with that right now. I'm going to leave it, let it dry, and then work on the next stage. So the next part is right down here. I have the background hill, and this is going to be a lot more purples and pinks. So now I'm just rinsing that brush again, going back to my purples, and we'll start out with kind of a blue purple. Both this red and this blue that I'm using are very powerful colors. See, more red. So you don't need very much of them. A lot of white, a tiny little bit of blue, a tiny little bit of red. And then you're just adjusting for lightness or darkness. There, a little bit darker. I'm going to have that on the edge of the hill. See, kind of like the shadow. Kind of like the shadow. Exactly like the shadow. Okay, so this is getting a little lighter and a little redder. So add a little more white and a little more red into that mix. And one more time, a little more, oops, a little more red, a little more white. Just a couple of little dabs. We'll get that brightest color, brightest pink in there. Now this is going to merge up into the sky a little, but before it does that, it's got to be a lot more orange, or at least a lot more pink. Let's see. Going back into the oranges. Orange. Just scatter some color around. Get some more color down by that horizon, so we can separate the hill from the background. I'm dunking my brush in some water here every couple of brush strokes just because I want to keep my paint flowing smoothly. There we are. Okay, so here's the part where I say don't go overboard, because if you do, you're going to overblend your colors and they just aren't going to look right. So stopping there, moving on. Cleaning out the brush one more time, and then I'll work on the foreground hill. I've already marked out where my yellow area will be. So taking a look at the other colors, I've got some dark blue and I've got some purple. A couple little splashes of color here and there, and then the highlights over the top of that. So we'll do the background colors first. You can see the yellow up here where we have the highlights on that bottom hill. Okay, there you go. So we want to get the darks in first. More water, more blue, more water, a little more white. Okay, so now I'm mixing up kind of a soupy concoction here. Taking a little bit of red, adding to that. We can't have it all be blue. And let's lighten that up a little more white going into that purple. I'll take some pink and throw it in there. Just add some variety to our colors. We don't want it to get boring. Taking a little bit lighter color now, a little bit more white. All right, and then on the last part over here, I'll take a lot more white. So we can keep our painting interesting and keep our lines interesting. There we are. Okay, so that is looking pretty all right. Let's see if I can add a little more purple here and there. Maybe it's a little bit lighter. And where that yellow is on the top. Oh, good thing I checked my brush first. There we are. And now we've got some white and some yellow. More white. Okay. Just scribbling on some of that color, and that is going to help break up the edges. There. right, looks good. Letting that go. Now this is a really good time to let that painting dry for a little while. So if you're planning to take a break, now would be the time to do that. If you're not planning to take a break, let's go. Don't like that I can see a little bit of canvas through that. There. Lovely. And I'm going to try and blur this up a little. So actually, why don't I just go ahead and do exactly that? Perfect. All right. Sorry about this flickering. I'm really not sure what's going on. But it's been doing it the last couple of videos, and I'm not sure how to make it stop. Okay. Nope, not going to do it. All right. Walking away, letting it dry. Briefly. So I've got some lines showing through on my sun here. I definitely want to cover that up, so I'm going to do at least one more layer over parts of the sky, at least that part of the sky for sure. And in the meantime, let's work on that deer. Rinsing the brush. Okay. Now I'm going back to my purples. Now my purples this time are going to be more of a dark blue. So I'm taking my blue, I'm taking my red, mostly the blue, and mixing it into a dark color. And then what I'm going to do on this deer is just fill the whole thing in solid with that purple or dark blue or whatever color you want to call it. This is the darkest color that you'll be using, so keep it dark. Just blue, just red. And the colors that I'm using today are transparent, so that will help them to get a really dark color when you mix them together. If you're using a craft paint or something that's not transparent, you're never going to be able to get a light color, a truly light color. So just keep that in mind. And if you're fighting with the colors, it might not be your fault. And now at the bottom of this reindeer where we had that double line, the first line was for the blue and the second line is for the white. Okay, I'll have to touch that up a little. But that's okay. There's always some touch-ups at the end. And at least I know what I'm looking for. All right, let's give that guy a big old ear. And I know what you're thinking. Isn't that brush a little too big for what you're doing? And yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Let's put that one away and switch to the small brush. Small brush. Same color. Now this is the hard part. This is still wet, so I gotta try to not stick my hand in the wet paint. And yes, that is the hardest part. For me, anyway. I think instead of getting too detailed, I'm just going to paint this all dark and define my face after that, after this dries. Okay, some minor adjustments there, and then I'm going to move on to some of the lighter colors. I'll just keep this small brush as long as I have it and take some white Mixing it into my purple. So this is a very bluish purple in this part, very blue, maybe even a little more white. Okay, so I know where my highlight areas are. They're right in here. Okay, and then I'll go with a little bit more red to that blue. So now we'll have a warmer shade of purple. Still keep it light because it's got to show up over your dark background. Okay, stopping there. I see something that I want to fix, so I'm switching back to my big brush for a moment. And you just want to fill in that spot between the legs. Okay. All right. Now my lighter colors, I'm going to call it white, but it's actually just a really light blue here. I'll show you. Okay, so you see this area under the belly that's kind of a light grayish blue. And then you can see right along the chest, the neck, where it's got really bright highlights. So we have two different colors there that we're working with. I'll start out with the darker color, which is kind of that grayish blue. I'll make it a little bit more of a purpley blue. Maybe even a little lighter than that. Okay, we've got that fluffy little tail. All right. Stop there for a minute. Okay, there's some light right down in here, right around the eye. And on part of the nose. A little bit lighter color on the edge of the ear. Okay, and going back into a dark color again. All right. Looking good. So we've got the antlers that we're going to add, and then the highlights on the ground. Might redo part of the sun. And yeah, and we're getting close to the end. So my very dark color, a little bit of red, a lot of blue, Add a little bit of water to keep it flowing smoothly. And we'll see how detailed I can get on this antler. Light touch with the brush. And I'm going to have to pick up paint after every brush stroke this time. See that? Run out pretty quickly. Adding a touch more water. Okay, I think a little bit more here. All right, just going to turn this a little so I can, yeah, starting out at the end of the antlers and pulling toward the head seems to be the better way to go. Okay, enough of that. Rinsing the brush. I think to get much more detail than this, I would have to be using a much smaller brush. So I'm going to add my highlights to the eyes. So I'll go with a light yellow. And I'll just put a little dot. There we go, for the reindeer eyes. And let's go back to that big brush. Rinse it out. And I want this area to be really, really bright. Because I put a whole line of white, that means I still have clean white paint. Keeping white clean through the whole painting is a tough one. Okay, and then I'll move into a little bit of yellow. Again, and I want to make sure I'm covering the edges. I don't want to see those edges. Okay, I don't want to go too overboard or I'm going to end up repainting the whole darn background. Nope, too dark. Just touching up some areas of the sky that might need it. I could blend this in a little better. Oop. But not like that. There. So I've got more of an orangey pinky. Okay, how are we looking there? Let's see. Not too terrible. I would like to get some of this background in there first, or get some of those highlights in there, and then we'll see what we need to do with it. So cleaning the brush again. I'm still using my super whites and super yellows, so loading up that paint on the brush. And let's switch back to the original. Okay, so we've got some yellow scribbles and then some white, so that's pretty easy. So let's start with those. Actually, I'm going to switch back to my small brush a moment because I've already got the light color on my big brush. So I'm going to use the small brush to pick up that more yellow color. And that was mostly just kind of scribbled in here. Okay. And now I've got the white, which is some little tappy taps. Keep it thin, keep it watery. And I'm just tap, tap, tap. And these are the grasses growing out of the hill, catching that sun. And this is just going to be little wisps using just the corner of the brush. If you wanted to use a tiny brush for this, I would recommend a liner brush. And a liner brush is just a really thin, small round, but it's got really long bristles. And they work well for, they carry a lot of paint, and for grasses or anything like that, they work really well. All right, what do you think of that? We could do a couple of little highlights, reshape that back leg. All right, I'm calling it. I'm seeing a couple of little fun color splashes that I would like to make a little more pronounced, but it's pretty much done at this point. I'm telling you it's done now before I ruin it, because I might be about to. Okay, just some little splashes in there. There, just wanted to warm it up a little. Some nice color. Don't think too hard about it, just do it. Okay, so here we are. This is pretty much the whole painting. I'm going to get this out of the way so we can see that. And you can get detailed on this if you want to. You can just zoom right in and work on all the little details on the face or wherever. Or you can just have some fun with that background. That is a nice, fun, splashy background and just super fun to paint. So thank you for painting along with me today on this majestic reindeer. You can get your membership at members.creativelyuncorked.com, and I will see you next week.